Evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this regularly scheduled City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, November 15th, 7:30 p.m., and I would like to call this meeting to order. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we're going to stand and remain standing for Father Tony Richter from Guardian Angels as he provides our words of inspiration for the night.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Father Richter.
And thank you for having me here tonight. It's great to be here. And one of the things as we gather today, we also know that our days have been getting darker. And so one of the things that we'll begin with is the whole gift of life and light. And so God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And light brings hope, wisdom, and goodness, and it'll never go away. The unfolding of God's word also brings light and gives understanding that is simple and easy to understand. If we look deep inside ourselves, we also can find clarity. And those who are wise will shine in the brightness of the heavens. And so today it is good news that we are enlightened and we also can learn from that light. We will be at a far better place than ever before. And so we can also spread knowledge through that light. Here tonight, as we come together with much light and brightness, let us also let our wisdom also shine. As we gather together also, let's ask for the blessing on those and understanding who we serve. And as we come together, we ask also protection upon our police officers, our firefighters, all of our civil servants, city workers, and our city council here tonight. As we ask also the blessing upon all of our citizens, that in the darkness, in the dark days, that they might also have, let also the light of God shine on our city and in all of our residents. Most of all, we ask that the light shine here in this meeting tonight, and may that light also bring wisdom, hope, and goodness to Clawson. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mayor Milan.
I am here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Sampson.
Here.
Councilmember Shepard is absent. You do have a quorum, though, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do you know if he was logging in with
I do not
us?
see.
Okay.
No.
He'll be logging in tonight.
Will he? Okay.
Yeah, working through.
That's great. Thank you. Next item on the agenda would be approval of our agenda. One thing, we need to remove the proclamation honoring resident Brooklyn Hess. Brooklyn is one of our local teenagers in the community, and she is unavailable to be here today, so we're going to move that to a meeting, perhaps our first meeting in December. And I would really like for her to be present when we present this proclamation, so we're going to remove that one for tonight.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to amend the agenda and move 8A and B up right now, first thing, so we can watch these wonderful people.
Sounds good.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Okay, great. So with that, I would like to welcome the Guardian Angels Catholic School robotics team tonight. All these handsome young men that are sitting here looking really excited to show us what they've been working on, along with all of their support staff from the school. Feel free to come forward. Parents who are in the audience who want to take pictures or videos, you feel free to come stand or sit right in front of us. Pull up a chair, do whatever you want, or come up here and join us, because we really would like you to be able to capture these moments best you can for yourselves. So if anyone would like to do that, please come on up and join us.
Do you have to talk into the mic, or is this okay?
They probably should talk into the mic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Best angle in the house, right?
Sure.
I'll move so you can have the best angle.
Hi, I'm John Mayton. Whoops, is this on? Okay. Hi, I'm John Mayton. I'm the coach of Connie Eisenhart, who's one of the teachers at the school. So this is the Guardian Angels robotics team, and we'll let the team tell you a little bit about our robot.
My name is Xavier Grace. I'm inside the 7th grade. I've been in the robotics team for 2 years. We're participating in the first tech challenge. The field we play on is 12 feet by 12 feet. The objective of the game is to put one of these cones on. There's going to be many poles on the field, and we have to score as many times as possible. The game is played with alliances of 2 teams each. It is 2 minutes and 2.5 minutes long, 30-second autonomous, 2-minute teleop, where we control with the game controllers.
Hi, robotics team. Our robot fits inside the size constraints of 18 inches by 18 inches and is powered by 4 motors connected to each wheel. We have Mechnum wheels, which allows us to go into any direction which we choose. And we score points with our 3-stage elevator and our claw. So once we pick up the cone and lift it up, we place it onto the rod or junction via scoring our points.
Hello, my name is Carter. I'm in 7th grade, and this is my 2nd year doing robotics. We have a 3-stage lift that we use to score cones. We go up to a cone, suck it up with sticky wheels, and we pick it up and go score it on a pole. There's different heights of each pole. A ground junction is 2, a small one is 3, a medium one is 4, and the highest one is 5. And also, we can push cones into the corner for 1 point, and the highest pole is 3 feet tall.
Hello, my name is Patrick. I am in the 7th grade, and this is my first year doing robotics. For autonomous mode, we have our robot hold a cone and then read our custom sleeve, and we then head into that respective parking spot that it reads. Once we do that, we then go to the closest spot to score with our cone. How we read the cone is by RGB, which means red, green, blue. How we read it is by looking for the highest value. Red would mean that we go to the left. Green would mean that we stay in the middle, and then blue would mean that we go to the right.
Hi, my name is Josh. I am in 6th grade, and this is my first time doing robotics. Our driver's controller can go forward, backwards, and side to side. It can also spin around. The claw controller can close, open, and go up and down for the elevator. The driver station connects to the control hub, which makes it able for us to control everything on our robot. Now we like to demonstrate.
Put it on the floor. We do expect the mayor to drive after this.
Yay! You have extras, right, in case something happens?
We can go forward and backward. We also have the ability with the mechanism wheels go side to side, and also we can spin. And we also have the ability to turbo.
Using our controllers, we can use the lift and the claw to go up and down to score the different levels of the cones. And also using the controller, we can release the cone.
I'll pick it up. Now go.
And we also have this button that goes slower if we needed to.
And then once we've reached our desired point to score, we reach however high up we need to, and we simply just release.
Would you like to give it a try to drive?
Sure, why not?
To show her how to drive it. We won't do the elevator. Yeah. We have traffic enforcement here.
Put that cone on top of the other one.
This joystick, this is forward and backward. This right here is to spin. The right one is to go side to side.
Okay.
So put a cone out and have her drive to a cone. Put a cone out there.
And it's gonna be really good with spin. Okay, wait, all right, so,
You can spin first.
It's left and right to spin.
okay.
So far, so good.
I don't know. So,
That's,
forward is this one? And how do I make it go up?
well, here, you can make, they'll make it up. There you go. Now just drive into it.
Yeah, make me look good here, come on.
Now drive into
I'll
it.
do what I've seen
Now
my
drive-
kids do
drive
all
forward
their
and down.
lives,
Just a minute, yeah.
right?
Just do what
They
they do.
move a lot while you're doing it.
Remove it, hold it.
Alright.
Move it, hold it.
So
Now
once you
just
drive
drive
into
forward.
it, it should
Drive
center
forward a
in.
little bit. There you
Oops,
go.
maybe not that
A
much.
little slower, a little slower.
Okay, is that too
Come on,
much?
A little more,
A little more
forward.
ahead?
Yeah, there you go. Okay, now.
Oh, I was thinking it had to touch the
And then you
top.
would,
go.
now you'd spin and put it, just spin, just for fun.
Spin.
This one.
This one. That one.
Yeah, Put my lead.
Turbo, that's right, turbo. This is so cool. All right. Thank you.
Didn't break anything, that's a good.
So, what else you got?
This is it.
So I would like your instructor to come on over and share her great news of the day. Or someone wants to take the microphone to her.
Oh.
She had a really good day, I hear. You guys should be
Connie?
so proud of her.
Come on, she come over. Yes, you turn that off.
Connie received several awards today.
Yeah, my name's Connie Eisenhardt. I'm Guardian Angels teacher for 36 years over at Guardian Angels. I've been teaching science, and now I'm doing STEM and robotics for the kids. And I won an engineering award for the school of 4,500, and for myself 4,500. And then today, I got elementary teacher of the year from Michigan Science Teachers Association. So I won that today.
And don't let Connie fool you with the awards, because she puts most of that money, all of it or more, back into it. So definitely a great example of a teacher. So.
Well, this shows community right here, all of the people who came together, and you young men. So Xavier, Rowan, Carter, Patrick, and Josh, congratulations. Excellent job. Would you guys mind taking a photo with the city council members?
Oh, no problem.
Great, just let's meet in the front here.
Oh yeah, you gotta put the robot in the middle. It's still in one piece.
You know you wanted.
You guys move up a little bit. Move up a little bit. You guys move up so people can stand behind you a little bit.
You're good.
Snake windows, boys, not too tight, so the people behind you can be seen.
Yeah. You're tall. That's a problem. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
shake all of your hands. Thank you so much for coming here today. You did a great job. You did not at all act nervous. Actually, you were all so well spoken. I want to tell you that you must have done this a few times to explain this, because everyone's not as confident in sharing what they do, and you guys did an exceptional job at that. So thank you. Continue to make your school and your teachers look good. So this is a really great night here at City Hall, because we just had the pleasure of celebrating some of our youth in the community and people doing good. And then the next thing we have on our agenda is a proclamation honoring resident Marianne Markwick for her 100th birthday. And when you hear this, how this all comes together and how the impact of life in Clawson can have, it's really amazing. And the things we can celebrate in this community are definitely our people, and I would like to say that we're always happy to do that. So I'm going to read this proclamation, and then I'm going to ask her family to come up. And if you'd like to share any extra words, you're welcome to, and then I'd like to also have a photo with you. So this is the 100th birthday of Ms. Marianne Elizabeth Bowen Markwick. Whereas on November 13th, 1922, Ms. Marianne Elizabeth Bowen Markwick was born in Clawson to Norman and Carrie Davidson Bowen, who were among the founding families of the community. Ms. Markwick's father served as fire chief and mayor of Clawson, while her grandparents, John and Margaret Davidson, owned a farm just east of Crooks Road, where in World War I, airplanes from Selfridge Air Force Base would practice landings and takeoffs. And whereas Ms. Markwick grew up with her brother James in Clawson, she was valedictorian of Clawson High School in 1940 and a member of the DDD Club. She went on to attend Alma College, graduating with a Bachelor of Arts degree and a teaching certificate. Returning to Clawson, she taught math and English in the Clawson High School. And whereas she married a fellow Clawson High School classmate and graduated, John P. Markwick, in 1946, together they raised 5 children: Judy, Jack, Jill, Jeff, and Jean. All 5 children graduated from Clawson High School. After they graduated, Ms. Markwick worked as a part-time bookkeeper for a local business and later in the records department at William Beaumont Hospital, retiring from that position after 20 years of service. And whereas while living and working in Clawson, Ms. Markwick was active in the PTAs of the schools her children attended, the Clawson chapter of the AAUW and United Methodist Church of Clawson. Ms. Markwick also had the distinction of being named Clawson's Man of the Year in 1970. And whereas Ms. Markwick enjoyed playing tennis, sailing, and dancing with her husband, Marianne was an avid crossword puzzle solver and reader. And whereas she is the most beloved and proud grandmother of 11 grandchildren and their spouses and 12 great-grandchildren. And whereas Ms. Marianne Elizabeth Bowen Markwick is a loving mother, sister, friend, and grandmother, and is cherished by your family and friends. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Paula Milan, Mayor of the City of Clawson, on behalf of the entire City of Clawson and the City Council, do hereby proclaim November 19th, 2022 as Ms. Marianne Elizabeth Bowen Markwick 100th Year Celebration of Life Day. Be it resolved that a copy of this certificate shall be delivered to her with our best wishes for a happy 100th birthday. Family, please join us. If any of the Jays are here.
I have one J. There's one J.
Yes.
The oldest J.
And if,
Judy.
if
I'm
everyone
Judy.
remembers, Susie was our economic development coordinator for a while, and she left us to go to another community, but we still love her. Thank you.
Let me introduce the rest of our family. This is my cousin Jack.
Hello.
And Caitlin, his daughter, Debbie and Denny Fisher, who are still residents here in Clawson as of what year?
We've been here since 1977.
77. So this is our group for right now, but we are planning a nice celebration on the 18th at Mom's assisted living facility.
Awesome.
Yep.
If you'd like to add anything else, you may. I need to know about the Man of the Year award.
Well,
go ahead. I'll let you.
Not a
because you researched.
Not a ton is known about being named the Man of the Year. In 1970, I was trying to find out who was it. Was it the Lions Club? I don't think it was the Lions Club, right?
Do you know?
I don't think so. I can't figure it out. But
Well,
she
it's
was
quite
the
a
Man of the Year. It's
distinction.
not a typo, I promise. I've seen the plaque, Man of the Year.
I was there that night, and that was the funniest night of what I have ever been to.
Yeah.
Well, then you need to regale us.
I can't remember much more other than laughing the whole night. They just kept making jokes about Man of the Year.
I'm sure it was well-deserved.
Indeed,
Right? Yes.
indeed. She is one of the most amazing women I've ever had the pleasure of calling, family, but she's just fantastic. And so I'm very thankful that Council Clawson was able to do this for her.
I
So
do have another, she does have another distinction. We have nicknamed her the Imelda Marcos of Clawson.
Indeed.
Because she had over 400 pairs of shoes. 200 pairs of the 3-inch spikes that she wore when she was 70 and 80 years old to work at William Beaumont Hospital, and another 250 shoes that we discovered in her house, the shorter variety, but those are now, she's just down to flats. So, but we call her the Imelda Marcos of Clawson.
That's nice. Very, very nice. Well, do you mind if we take a photo with
Love
the
it.
family?
Everybody's going to do it. Pat, you and Sean want to come? Pat is also with us. He is with Planning Alternatives, and when Mom turned 90, they did not have any other clients who are 90 years old. So as far as I know, we're the only ones that celebrated Mom's 90th birthday. Pat, Hannah, and Sean.
Do you want us to be up there?
Want to
Bob, after you
All
get some
right,
family
thank
pictures.
Sorry. Small cycle on that side, just for.
over. Oh, I bet it was that in 1971, right? Right.
All right, do you want to hop in there?
Yeah. Go in the back.
You didn't want to be in the front row.
No.
So you're not going in the back, dude. There we go.
Awesome. Got some
Thank you
good-
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your family story with us. I'm really happy.
All right. I don't know, but I'm sure I can find them. All right. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going back to real work, but this was fun. Thank you for making this fun for us. So next up on the agenda, we're going to move back to consideration of approving the following consent agenda. Oh, I missed 6. Sorry, I missed number 6. So next, we're going to go back and offer up public comment for items on the agenda. If you're here and you'd like to speak to any item that is on the agenda, please come forward, state your name and address, and we will give you 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Mike Farrar with the Clawson Fire Department and Clawson Goodfellows. I live at 519 North Rochester Road. I'm here to discuss our newspaper sale on December 3rd between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. at pretty much every intersection in Clawson. We'll be selling newspapers. We sell them. It's donation based. So I was told we need to do some sort of pro forma request to make. We've done it, I think, for like 75 years, but I wanted to make sure it was still okay. So that's why I'm here today.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve Clausen's Goodfellow request to conduct their paper sale on Saturday, December 3rd, 2022.
Support. We'll just jump to that if you don't mind. It makes sense. Yes, of course.
Fairmont, yes. Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
All set?
All set.
Thank you very kindly. I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
We appreciate your
all you
coming
do.
tonight. Thank you. Okay, as I don't see anyone else here, we'll move from the public comment for items on the agenda to item 7, which is consideration of approving the following consent agenda. Item A is minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, October 18th, 2022 as presented. Item B would be minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, November 1st, 2022 as presented. Item C is minutes of the special city council meeting held on Thursday, November 3rd, 2022 as presented. And item D would be list of bills in amount of $787,637.30. Hi, Glenn.
Hi from my COVID sanctuary, apparently.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to approve this consent agenda? Do we have concerns regarding the consent agenda anyone would like to discuss?
Well, they get 2 sets of minutes in there that are, or one of them has the 2 yeas, 1 nay, motion passes. You can't.
2 yeas, 1 nay, motion passes.
Yeah.
It does pass. Am I missing something?
No, 2 yeas. Councilor, do you mean 2 nays somewhere?
2 yeas.
Does it require 3? Are you asking
You
if it
think something requires 3 to pass?
to pass?
I looked at some of our old council meetings, and we had to have 3 votes. If we had 3 council people, we had to have 3 yeses. This time we didn't. We only had 2.
Which, I guess I'm not familiar. Which one are you looking at?
I think it's a special meeting, the very last one.
We would have caught that. The November 3rd minutes?
Was it the one with,
Oh, hold on.
The motion to approve the mediator?
yeah. Yeah, the mediator. City of Clawson, A's, Anderson, Sampson, A's, Milan.
There's no reason.
Motion passes.
Yeah.
It would pass, Councilmember Sampson. There are some motions that wouldn't, that would require by either, by charter or by our code of ordinances, a specific number. For example, if you recall, in recent history, we had one such motion was the terminating the relationship with the city manager. That one requires an affirmative, they required a certain amount of votes per charter. You could have that. Here, the moment that you have 3, you have quorum, then it's just a majority vote. I'm happy to look deeper into the issue if you think that there's something that we're missing, but I don't believe we are.
No.
Dennis, does it apply to going into closed session? I thought that was the case.
No, this was the appointment of the mediator.
Yeah, that's not the go into closed session.
No, it doesn't have any of those caveats attached to it.
Yeah, and actually, that's a perfect example. Some of the motions for going into closed session would require exactly that, would require 3 yeses. Some don't, though. Some of those issues is just a simple majority vote as well, based on quorum. But nothing that, again, nothing that comes to mind as far as I'm concerned, and I think August is agreeing, would trigger any issue in my mind.
Well, we've had a few over the past 3 years that we couldn't do because we didn't have 3 yeses.
Absolutely.
With a 3-person. And I understand the one that you're talking about. That was, what do they call it, elected.
Yeah, a majority of the members elected was the issue.
That's a charter caveat.
That's a
Yes.
charter caveat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm happy to go back and look into it, Councilmember Sampson, for our edification. For purposes of the minute, you can always come back. If we were to find something that is, stands out of order, we're happy to obviously bring it back to the attention of council and readdress those minutes as well as the decision itself, obviously, the motion itself. But I don't believe there's an issue. I'm happy to look into it, though. I'll report back to you.
So our options are to not approve these minutes and wait for your determination, or just take your determination at a later time and then come back and
Yes, ma'am.
rectify
I would
whatever.
say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anything pending that cannot wait until the next meeting. I presume by the time we come to the next meeting, the situation will not have changed, so you could still address that motion at that time if there were to be an issue. So you could, as far as I'm concerned, you could approve it so you could move forward, and that you have that done. And we're only dealing with minutes anyways, but, you could approve it, move forward. If there's an issue, I'll come back by the next meeting, address council.
But the minutes are history, so I'd like them.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
So are we approving them right now, or are you pulling those off for approval
I won't
in the
approve them
future?
until we're sure.
Okay. All right. Is that the only one? So that was the November 3rd meeting?
Yeah.
So you want to pull the November 3rd for right now, and then the other ones were fine with you?
I just seen one that didn't look right, but
I have one in writing if you want. It is confusing. We have had lots of situations where something is yes, no, you may not do this today, but it seems like we did that before. So it would probably be great if you give us some kind of a
Absolutely.
formal determination on what
Absolutely.
ifs and wins for moving
Absolutely.
forward.
well, if we can go back and
I'll review the
Consider-
entirety so that you're not, so that you don't, try to figure it out right now. I'll review the entirety of the
I found
votes.
it October 18th, October 18th. I knew there was.
Yeah, so you had pulled those originally to add your notes to it, and I never got your notes.
Well, no, I know, but in there you got the CM 14122. It's got, I made the motion. Milan and Anderson were ayes, no nays, and Shepherd was absent. I'm probably pretty sure I voted some way.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure you did too.
Yeah, so why don't we hold that and change that?
That's easy.
Bring it back and I'll have the minutes by then.
Okay, send me your additional notes. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. The other one, and I get questions on the bills, but
Well, if you have them, let's hear them. That's why we're here. Let's go.
they're all, it looks like we use the term for
Councilmember
vendor
Madam Mayor, if I may, there's no motion on the floor right now. May we have a motion in a second
Oh,
so
I
that
thought
you
he
can
made
debate?
them, I thought that was the
That's okay.
motion. Okay, hold on. Consider it, all right, let's,
Start with the minutes, I guess.
no, we have to have a motion.
Yeah, but
That would encompass.
Is there anything remaining on the consent agenda first? Let's start there, please. If there's not, then we can take.
Minutes of November 1st?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have that.
Do we want to vote on the consent agenda?
We got this.
Okay, I'm just trying to help.
Let's let him, he's thinking.
Yeah, let's vote on the consent agenda.
Pardon me?
I'll bring my concerns up later on.
So we want to approve the bills?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the only thing, and the other two we're gonna take off
Yep.
until we have a determination from our attorney.
Yeah.
That will be our motion.
November 1st is going forward? Okay.
Yeah.
And was that seconded, that motion?
Yes, I'll second. I will second the motion of maintaining items B and D and removing items A and C.
You had questions regarding the bills. So did you want them on or did you not want them?
I'll send them to the city manager first.
So we're leaving them on. for the
It's just really
consent
the way they
agenda?
categorize them. It looks like everything's professional services or whatever you use. There's thousands of dollars on the professional services and, or whatever, the category. I can't find a category right this quick.
Okay, then we will approve B and D. Correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes. So what we just did was approved item B, which was minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, November 1st, and we approved the list of bills in the amount of $787,637.30. And we will await a determination from our city attorney on items A and C regarding minutes of October 18th and November 3rd. Bring us all up to date. So we've already taken care of our proclamations and presentations, and we're going to now move to new business, which under item A on our new business, we have also already taken care of the Clausen Goodfellows paper sale, which is Saturday, December 3rd. Make sure you go out to get your coffee in the morning and have dollars in your car and ready to pass that off when you hit the corners. It's a fun day. Next up will be a public hearing, solicitation of public comments on the 2023 Program Year Community Development Block Grant Fund. So on October 18th, the City Council set a public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant Fund application, as we are required to as part of the CDBG application process. The proposed allocation for the 2023 program year is $34,379. The administration has prepared a recommendation for the City Council, and more information can be found in our packet. Once this item has been presented, a public hearing shall be opened by the mayor. So, Nick, this is your show.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm just going to go ahead and read the memo, and then if you guys have questions, please feel free. So the Community Development Block Grant is a grant funded through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to keep communities sound, attractive, and economically viable. The City of Clausen is a subrecipient of Oakland County, who administers the grant to a majority of municipalities in Oakland County. The program strengthens neighborhoods by supporting local revitalization, home improvement, and public services for senior citizens, low-income persons and families, disadvantaged youth, and disabled residents throughout most of Oakland County. The county requires all participating communities to attend a yearly CDBG workshop, which was held on October 19th, 2022 this year, which I did attend. For program year 2023, the City of Clausen has been instructed to use $34,379 as our planning allocation for next year's projects. As part of the program, we are required to utilize a minimum of $3,500 for public services. Historically, the city has dedicated that funding for Haven via a county executed and administered contract. Haven provides services for domestic violence victims. It is recommended to continue funding this program as they have served Clausen residents and continue doing so. The projected leftover allocation of our total grant is going to be approximately $30,879. After consultation with the DPW and engineering department, we are recommending that this funding be allocated toward a removal of architectural barriers project to retrofit existing sidewalk ramps and install truncated domes to meet ADA current standards for the following intersections. Those intersections are South Main Street in Jefferson, South Main Street in Tacoma, West Tacoma, South Main Street in Charlevoix, South Main Street in Nakota, South Main Street in Tecumseh, South Main Street in Chippewa, South Main Street in Walper. Based on the locations of these projects, the public sidewalks around the downtown would improve and be brought into compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. The city of Clawson strives to be a walkable community, and ensuring that all members of the community are able to safely access and support downtown Clawson is essential. And if you have any questions, I'd be delighted to answer them.
Okay, so let's open up the public hearing. I hereby open this public hearing. Would anyone in the public like to speak regarding this topic?
I think Greg is
Come on, Greg.
Hi, Greg Kucera. I'm on the planning commission, you guys know me. So you're gonna spend this money and it has to go to certain causes, right? The Haven thing you talked about, we've done that for years.
Correct.
I fully believe in that. How do we decide on fixing the sidewalks? Is that just a call from the DPW?
So the confines of this grant are very restricted for what it can go towards, since Clawson doesn't have a ton of areas, so they base it off of a citywide map where certain areas meet a threshold of lower income, and we don't have any of those areas. The scope of project we can do becomes limited, and the removal of architectural barriers project is something that we started doing a couple years ago when we struggled to come up with projects. There's certain reporting guidelines that go into place for certain projects for the parks, rec, library, et cetera, and for the amount of tracking at the time, the department heads didn't think the money that they got from that fund influenced the amount of work that went into it. So the time spent on the grant, it conflicted with how much we got. And so when we started this project a couple years ago, we felt that it was, meeting the guideline of the grant and as well as still investing the money in the community.
Okay, now on these intersections that you mentioned, there aren't any handicap pads there right now?
There are a couple of them that are there, but the ones that currently are there, they're raised. And so instead of actually benefiting there, it's more dangerous than just having a regular sidewalk ramp.
Yeah, now we're getting to my point. I don't know how long ago those were put in, but something was defective if they're raising and people are tripping out. I'm concerned about that on intersections, but you can walk from here down to 14 Mile and trip 3 or 4 times between here and there. Our trees are heaving up all the paving stones on the thing. I'd like to see that taken care of.
So
can that be done with this grant money?
The sidewalk pavers could not be, and this was a conversation that we had with the DPW and engineering, and of course, that's something that we're aware of, but the grant funding wouldn't cover that. And this would probably not even be a drop in the park for what we have to use to fund that.
Will we ever level the sidewalks?
I think that's a loaded question that I don't have an answer to right now. Okay. At some point, of course, but
it's either that or it's tempting to put cones out there. I mean, right in front of the empty lot at Broadacre, the tree is heaving it up, and it's quite heaved. It's very easy to trip over. So if we're not going to flatten them and patch them, I think we should put some cones out there or something, let people know.
We can absolutely look into that.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
I got a question. Can't some of this money be used for people in need?
Yes.
They can file for it.
Yes, so we worked with that project a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that was a grant. What we essentially did was bounce that money back to the county, so we didn't get it. And at the time, there was some not positive feedback for what we did by giving it back to the county, and then our residents can apply for it. So that's why the recommendation is the sidewalk grant, because that's something that we were previously doing, so it's a continuation of that. It's all up to however is determined to use the grant. I mean, that's still a possibility. This is just what we're recommending at this time.
How does somebody that has need, what do they have to do?
So on the county's website, various amount of areas to go look into personal grants, but this one exactly is the home improvement program, which is they can go to that website and apply for a grant to construct new siding and roof home projects that if they meet specific income guidelines, that they're able to get an interest-free loan from the county.
And if we don't turn the money back, people in Clausen don't have the option.
They still do have the option for that. It doesn't change. We were just helping fund the program that year.
Are you asking if Clausen can fund and track that program ourselves outside of Oakland County?
Yeah.
Is that your question?
I'm sure I could contact the county because they obviously keep track of that for past years. I can look at seeing if they will provide that information to us. But the city itself, we don't apply for grants for residents. They could ask us for help, and I'm sure our entire staff would help them working through the process. I've spoken to residents that have gotten the grant, and they said it was a great program, but it is available to every Oakland County resident.
Do we advertise it?
Absolutely.
How do we do that?
I mean, the best way to do it, we could put something up at City Hall and use social media and our website.
When we give the money back to Oakland County, it's not guaranteed to go to Clausen residents. It goes into a pool.
That's correct. And the recommendation when we did that was because it was during COVID and more people were struggling, we imagined there might be some more Clausen residents in need, so that was the reasoning why.
Well, and we were limited to what we could self-perform with those funds, given those times, right? That was part of the impetus, but that we selected that during that year. But there's a lot of options for CDBG dollars to be used for small projects, for a lot of things, and maybe next year we look at some small things that we could do that would be kind of like we want to do with our ARPA funds, which is target something that we can't do otherwise, something like a special project, because the sidewalk things are going to take care of themselves at some point because we're going to have to do them. But it would be nice if we could do something that would target a few people for some good as well. And the sidewalks are important because they do affect a lot of people, but these dollars, there's so many little tricks with them, right? You have limits, but you also have a wide open, you can kind of create your own scene on it, on what you want to do. You just have to have the time and the effort to get together and do it. So Councilmember Sampson, if you're interested next year, I'm sure Nick will take some help with his research on what we can do with CDBG.
I think we did this last year,
projects.
same time.
We did, yeah.
We did. These crosswalks, are they that orange mat you're talking about?
That's correct.
Are we taking them off or putting them on?
There'll be new ones installed.
What do they look like? Just the same kind?
They're about probably 2x3 red sheet of cement material, and they're part of it's popped up, so if you're impaired visually, you can feel the sidewalk change, and so you know you're going to be walking into an intersection. I believe
Right
that's
now, a number of them are hazardous, and that's a detriment to not just every citizen, but so those that are maybe mobilely challenged. I think this is a good use of these funds to help advance and promote other people that they don't encounter something that may cause them harm by crossing their street.
And Councilman, I am very familiar with the grants you're speaking of that go for home improvement. About 7 years ago, they changed how CDBG money was distributed. It used to be a chunk of money that came to the city, and then they would do that, and it would be like porch repairs, roof repairs, and such. The problem there was it required like a 7 or 8 year lien on the property if you took the grant. So people stopped applying for it because it was gonna lock them into their property. And they were usually older people with lower income, and within 4 or 5 years, they had to sell the house anyway. That's what we were seeing. And then that whole version of the distribution of the funds went away anyway. But it was a common thing to have cities giving out roof grants and porch repair grants for safety purposes. But that all went away.
How do they do it now?
It goes to the county, and I believe it's in the form of loans now. I don't believe they give direct grants, do they?
Yeah, it's a no interest loan.
Okay,
that they do.
So it's a different way of administering it, but you're not incorrect. It was once done that way. It was usually like 5-6 years ago.
Hey, does anyone have anything else? I will close this hearing. And if there's nothing else, we can take a motion on this item.
So moved. Just the way you wrote it.
Oh, the way it's written, I don't have your writing.
Makes it easier for him.
Okay, you move that the block grant be submitted as it's written here? Okay, do you want me to read that?
No.
Okay.
We all got a copy.
Well, the public
We
doesn't
should
know.
probably read
It's kind
it.
of
So
just
you
about the
motion,
public, right?
you moved that the 2023 community block grant application be approved and submitted to the Oakland County Community and Home Improvement Division as recommended by the administration and authorize the mayor to sign the subrecipient agreement. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
That's your motion?
Roll
I'll
call.
second it.
Okay.
Councilman Shepherd is not available to vote. I believe he was the next one in line. Sorry about that. Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for your work on that. Next up is item 9C, which is consideration of approving a budget amendment for the Water and Sewer Fund for fiscal year 2022-2023. During the November 1st, 2022 City Council meeting, the first quarter budget amendments for fiscal year 2022 and 2023 were presented to the City Council. All of the amendments were approved outside of the amendment for the Water and Sewer Fund, item 592. This amendment is being resubmitted with the additional information as requested by the City Council. Who would like to address this for us?
In a nutshell, Councilmember Sampson had a question about professional services rendered, and at the time of the administration, we didn't have an explanation for the $5,000. The $5,000 is now in that memo, and the rest is it was allotted to depreciation, which you can see in the detail that the Finance Director, Kelly Rao, provided.
Would you please just give a brief description for the public who didn't play along that night so they understand what the $5,000 was?
The $5,000 was for the sewer rate study that was contracted through the Raymond Group.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have any further questions? No?
I am curious about the depreciation. What did cause the $19,395 increase in depreciation?
Kelly Rao, Finance Director. Those were adjustments from previous year additions on fixed assets.
Okay, so are you working to like a set formula? I mean, when you talk about depreciation.
It depends on the type of equipment or land, vehicle. So they're based straight year, whether it's 5-year, 20-year, 30-year, depending on what's purchased. So we have a fixed asset schedule, and each year it's updated to remove any disposals, add any additions, and the additions would create an adjustment for future years.
Okay.
Any other questions? Someone like to make a motion? Okay, I will make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022-2023 first quarter budget amendment for the Water and Sewer Fund, item number 592.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda will be item 9D, which is consideration of the first reading of an ordinance to govern rental units. The City Council has discussed and shared their input on the draft rental ordinances presented by the City Attorney, Mr. Nushai. Mr. Nushai has modified the ordinances based on the insight from the City Council. Historically, these two ordinances have fallen under the same agenda item, but as the City Council considers approving the first reading, they will need to be discussed and approved as separate items. Mr. Nushai.
Madam Mayor, but I think you need a motion first.
Oh, yeah.
You want a
first
motion
reading.
to approve that as written, or just to read it?
Just the first reading.
Oh, yeah. I move to approve the first reading of this proposed ordinance on rental units.
Support.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of our council, as obviously this body will recall, we've had several occasions to consider this and the related proposed ordinance governing short-term and regular rentals. This is a registration and inspection ordinance, obviously, as council has had occasion to address in the past. There's a lot more that could be, that we can pass by way of ordinance considering these topics, and I think more is why it is wise that we do so in the future. But this is an excellent first step. Council on the previous meeting indicated its wish for the proposed ordinance to be passed on to the community, to a couple of our boards, even though they don't have any relation to the passing or any authority with respect to it. Council deemed it appropriate to be done as obviously members of this community who are highly involved. It makes sense that we do so. We did so. We've sent it, obviously. I've shared it with the Planning Commission as well as with the Zoning Board of Appeals. I presume they've had time to digest the information. I haven't heard any commentary per se, but this is a first reading. Obviously, everybody in the community will have an opportunity to do so, to have any comments or to make any requests or whatever may be necessary concerning these two topics from now and between now and the second reading as well. So, and the publication that will be necessary. So we're requesting that you consider passing this. You vote to move this forward, and of course, one point which the city manager did bring up. Item T on this first ordinance, if you look at the letter T, it talks about expiration and reinspection procedures. The period of time that we have in there is 3 years. At one point or another, council did speak to a 2-year period. I think we all agree that it probably makes sense for a shorter period of inspection as opposed to that longer one. And I would ask that as you approve this first reading, you do so with that caveat, with that slight modification.
So you just told us that you brought something before us, you took it to the Planning and Zoning Commissions as requested, and by taking it to them, you sent them both an email, and that was it, right? That was the extent of your sharing this information with them?
I shared with information. I appeared at planning personally. At ZBA, I haven't been able to appear personally because they haven't had a meeting. But yes.
I was at planning when you showed up at planning and said you were going to send them an email, so there wasn't a lot of discussion because they didn't know what you were going to present to them because you hadn't sent it to them. You were sending it out at midnight, but that's okay. What I'm concerned about is you said that this is a good first draft and we should probably come back and look at this again. What are we missing? If you know that there's something that may be deficient in this, what are we missing?
No, you're not missing anything. That's not what I meant. What I meant is this is a first reading. We're going to have a second reading of this with respect to the entire area of law that you could possibly pass by way of ordinance. There's more when it comes to ordinances such as the ones dealing with rentals. This deals with registration and inspection.
Mm-hmm.
There's more there that you can govern, that you can ordain. Things like, I don't know, I mean, for example, zoning can be one of those issues, right? But we would be opening this up. There requires a lot of consideration because it would come into not conflict, but it would come into play along with current zoning that we have. The conversation there would need to be broader. We need something that is, in my humble opinion, something that is more immediate. This is an excellent first step as far as registration, inspection, and then obviously council heard, for example, from one of the members of our planning commission on previous occasion who had done a lot of research on this, had a lot of ideas. I don't know that I share all those ideas, but I thought a lot of the ideas that she presented, to council were appropriate for council's consideration down the road. My 2 cents tells me that we shouldn't make this too broad at this particular point in time. This should be narrow starting out, and then we simply add on to it, complemented by way of additional legislation down the road.
But you're saying that the registration and inspection portion, which you drafted, is concrete.
Yes.
It is complete in anything, potentially, that we would need to address at this time. There
Yes,
are no holes in that, right? Because that's kind of what I heard you say, that like.
Oh, no,
It's a good start, but we'll probably have to come back at it. I just want to make sure we're
I-
not having to come back at
Yeah.
the registration and inspection
No,
portion.
point well made, I meant the additional
Okay,
components.
thank
to
you.
it, not
That's
these.
looking for clarification.
No, thank you.
Okay.
When do we put the details in, the fees and the timelines for getting them inspected and re-inspected?
I'm sorry,
When do we put in the details for the fees, the timelines for getting them inspected and then re-inspection if they fail?
Yeah, that's administrative in nature. Council wouldn't necessarily be involved in that. Could you? Yes, I would.
Well, the fees would be part of the fee structure in the next budget. So that would be approved with the fee structure.
So I think that's the proper path going forward.
You wouldn't put it in here because
Right.
it could change in
Yeah, they
5
wouldn't-
years.
I wouldn't want to pass this and find out the fees are extreme.
Well, you have to pass the fees in the fee structure for the next budget.
Right. It's always coming back to you.
Yeah.
Timeline is fair, though, because we're, like you said, we don't want a 3-year inspection, we want a 2-year inspection.
Correct.
We want to keep those things tight so that
Yes.
we don't have
Absolutely.
long, because 2 years is a long time for an inspection if you have a
It is.
person who will abuse,
Yeah, it is.
social opportunities.
Then it's a re-inspection. If you fail the first inspection, you don't want to wait 6 months, or you want it 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
So are those addressed appropriately for you?
Yeah, I think in my mind, they are addressed appropriately, particularly given this, because we have timeline with respect to reinspection if you fail, and that's 30 days. So that's not, I don't know that that would be an issue, but going from a 3-year to a 2-year, it makes a whole lot of sense to me. Obviously, a shorter timeline there works. You don't want to make it so short that it's onerous on the applicant, but you don't want to let it go for too long. That's a decision of this body, right?
When do you put in furnace inspections?
I'm sorry?
When do you put in furnace inspections for the furnaces?
Yeah, so, you're going into minutia. Perhaps that may be wise. We may come back and decide that we want to go in those directions. Some communities do have those. I think, in my humble opinion, we need to have something on the books because we have nothing right now. You could have a whole, and this is the conversation that ensued based on the mayor's question, which I thought was appropriate. Is like, what more is out there? Well, that's one of the items that could be out there. That and a lot more. It depends on this body's willingness to go, as to how microscopic you want to go with your ordinances. But that's a determination for another day, I think. Here is the start for, let's have something on the book. On the books. Let's give something to the administration, the ability to go out there and at least have an idea of who's coming into town, who's renting. We have some inspections so that we know that, based on our duties as stewards of this community, on account of health, safety, and welfare, we're doing what is necessary, and we're keeping everybody safe. I think this is a good first step.
So if we pass this, the second reading next month,
Yes.
it goes into effect, 10 days?
I think 14. We have
14?
Yeah.
Usually.
Okay, when I walk in here 14 days
days.
from that day
Something like that.
and say, here, I'm going to register a rental, how much you got to pay, how much, are we going to have all that done by then?
It says 10 days in the ordinance, yeah.
There's gonna be some time between you passing it and it going into effect practically. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Not the ordinance's effect, but the effect practically. There are gonna be some administrative steps that need to take place, I presume. I'm not familiar with those. That would be, obviously, our building department. They'll have to draft the forms and everything else. We're all here to ensure that that happens.
Have we had no inspections to date? Like we've not required them ever?
No, that's not true.
Have something, and
Yes, there is a current application that is every 2 years that we've been sharing. You asked about the fees. It is $80 per building for that 2-year license. And so I know every 2 years those are inspected regularly.
Inside and out, or just outside?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Inside and out, or just outside?
Exterior currently. I think that's what the city attorney is trying to do, is to give a little bit more, more authority for us to check out our rental properties here instead of just walking by them. All right, roof's on, moving on.
So some communities have a 1 year exterior, 1 year, they alternate exterior, interior, which makes sense. And then you're saying the fee is every 2 years?
No, that's the exterior that we're talking about, right?
Okay.
And Nick is talking about. This one is, additional. This would go in and the interior as well.
Okay, so you're saying that one will be gone, that 2 year one that exists will be gone to be replaced by this one? This one will be both, will be inclusive of both interior, exterior, as opposed to the existing one that's exterior only?
This one will be both.
Okay.
But I don't know that it necessarily replaces it. It'll complement anything that we have on the books already.
So then every year, every 2 years, you will have an interior inspection.
Correct.
The next year, you will have an exterior inspection. Both will have an independent fee, right? We're not just charging someone for one fee every 2 years. We're not charging $80 fee every 2 years. They should have to pay every year a fee to have a rental unit, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that, so there will be,
So every year we got to go back and register?
No, every 2 years. So I think what we'll do with respect to this, in my mind, in our collective mind, every 2 year inspection is the appropriate, sort of mandate. We're going to time it along with that same inspection that we're currently doing. And we'll review all that. If necessary, we'll, like X one and keep one inspection for both outside and inside.
Would it be the best way to do it?
I'm sorry?
That's the way most of the cities around here do it now. Inside, outside, one time.
Inside, outside,
every
one
2
time.
years.
That's right.
Yeah.
But this would give us the ability to do so. With what we currently have, we don't. We wouldn't.
well, that one goes away because you're going to add interior, so it can't be both. But why don't we charge a fee every year, even if you're not doing an inspection every year, to hold a rental?
Most of them do a big enough fee for 2 years.
$80 is not a large enough fee for 2 years when people are charging the kind of rent I know they charge around here.
And I think as we get closer to the budget, obviously, council can make the determination for purpose of the budget, what that appropriate fee is. In the meantime, as this, we get this geared, we utilize whatever fee we have right now, which is $80, whatever that is.
Well, is that being looked at as to how, I can't imagine you can do an inspection in, well, $80 is one man hour, right? By the time you factor in all of their employee costs. So are we just factoring in 1 hour for every inspection? Because if that's true, that's not a very thorough inspection, which means your fee is not great enough to cover your cost.
The way that we have inspections set up right now is that inspectors get 75% of the permit. So this would fall under that.
So your inspector gets 75% of that $80?
Correct.
And you expect them to do a thorough investigation of a home or whatever rental unit for that much money in, like, basically an hour?
Well, this is just for the exterior.
Well, we just said it was for the interior.
Well, the current $80 fee is for our current ordinance we have. So when whatever inspector goes by and checks the home, they walk the exterior of the property, look for signs of whatever it could be, like I said, a roof, potential leaking into a basement, stuff like that. And that could take a few minutes, and then they get 75% of that $80 for when they inspect it. And so if we're moving forward with this ordinance where we have exterior, of course, that fee would be increased, but then they would still get 75% of it if it was $200, $500, whatever it may be.
Well, why is it 75%?
That's the way the inspection program is set up right now.
So then we need separate fee so that they get their 75% cut, but the city also maintains enough to cover the cost of our inspectors and the administrative functions that take place for rental units, because there are administrative costs to that. So
I actually agree. And I think as you get to the budget, I think those considerations are important. And I think, covering our man hours makes absolute sense.
But we don't want to burden the owners either.
That's right. And that's why you get paid the big bucks as council, to make those tough decisions.
Yeah.
To balance those issues.
I think it's just like, we have great property tax levels here in Clawson, and it tends to have dissuade some people from wanting to live here because our property taxes are a little bit higher than in some other neighboring communities for housing same size and all. But I think the rental business has to be the same, and we've had the pleasure of being in that business. It's not fun, but it should have a cost to it, right? It should not be just you're reaping every benefit. If you have skin in the game, you're much more likely to take good care of your properties, and ultimately that reflects on our community. And I would just like those things to be considered moving forward. So,
For the second reading, if I may, Madam Mayor, the administration will prepare some historical context so that you can see what we're doing and what we're going to be changing, so it's a little bit more apparent as far as any additions with this ordinance.
that would be helpful. Thank you.
But if we talk about this ordinance, we can bring up the fee structure at any point in time. That's not critical to the decision on moving forward on this ordinance, is it?
That's correct.
It's not in there.
I mean, 'cause certainly I would think that we need to look at possibly the scalability of these fee structures. So if there's a rental that's 300 square feet as opposed to 2,000 square feet, we're still having the same fee structure. I think that's something we need to discuss at some other point in time. But I think it's fundamentally imperative that we get this thing moved through.
We have some, that's absolutely correct. And I think the mayor, sort of accurately assessed the issue when it comes to fees. When she talked about, our administrative costs. We have case law that says that we can charge, this can't be a money-making enterprise for us, right? Right. Our fees have to be commensurate with our costs, and those costs, we just as we do for FOIA requests, for example, we have to assess based on man hours that we utilize. So, there's whatever the calculation is, and I'm glad actually Mr. Raker will provide some context into this, because that's helpful.
Well, clearly it needs to be revised because $20 $20 taken for this community for the services that undoubtedly are being provided by administrative staff would not, I'm sure, break even. And I don't want us to make money off of people's backs either, but we do have to cover our own selves so that we can continue to provide good services for everyone here. So, anybody want to?
I have a few questions.
Sure.
So, Rennis, you originally said you wanted to run this ordinance beyond not just planning, but zoning commissions.
Yes.
But not as bodies, as individuals. Am I correct? Because if on the meeting you simply announced, I'm going to send you an email for your review. Do you feel like you've gotten good feedback from those individuals?
No, and Councilmember Anderson, I think it necessary as part of active members of our community, which a lot, obviously, the people that we have in our planning commission and our ZBA are above and beyond. I think is, council's wisdom and desire to want to include them in the process as much as possible, to get some feedback as much as possible, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. We provided the information. As you can imagine, we have some members of our boards that are more active than others, more vocal than others, I should say, on these issues. And I have received some feedback. Nothing to alter since this this current version that you have before you today for first reading. Nothing to alter that. Not I personally, anyways. I don't know if anybody else has heard anything before this, this particular version that you have before you. We had, on council's direction, I had conversations with other stakeholders in the community, some of them members of our planning commission, and I had incorporated those, the commentary and some of the thoughts in this ultimate version that you have before you today. So I am personally satisfied. You could go on forever with respect to this stuff, with respect to any ordinance, but at the end of the day, there's got to be, has got to come a moment when you make the determination. And if we can't have the perfect be the enemy of the good. If this is good, you pass it. If you have concerns, you vote it down. None of us will take it to heart. We'll come back with something else, but we should have a vote on it, going forward.
Sure. Okay, and specific to ordinance 34.353, I notice we still have the definition of a boarding house, and then in clause O,
It says boarding houses shall not be permitted in the city of Clausen. There was some uncertainty last time of how that's both defined and enforced, and how it ties into short-term rental agreements.
What I think what I told you last time, and I'm not going to quote myself because I don't know that I remember what I told you, but I think this is my thought, and I presume I'm going to be consistent both now and then. It is boarding houses. That's language that we've utilized in the past, legally speaking. Obviously, that doesn't, that statement being said and being uttered, what does that mean for our purposes? Does it mean that it's no longer good law? No, not necessarily, but we don't see that a lot. We certainly haven't, dealt with it in Clausen before, but we haven't had an observation like this in our ordinances before. I have some doubts as to our ability to properly enforce that, based on, just the standards, because of the language in the case law that I reviewed as part of, bringing this information to you. It talks about, the case law talks about transient housing, and that conjures a certain historical moment in our country's history that is frankly not reflective of our realities today, certainly not here in Clausen. So that being said, I have some doubts myself as to our ability to properly enforce it, to be able to find that. Where found, we will push forward the way we do with any other ordinance. We'll try to enforce it to the best of our ability. But I don't know that if my level of confidence is at 100% on that one.
So we saying
But
that.
I think it's sometimes, even though, and I'm sorry to interrupt, to cut you off, sometimes there's value in stating our intentions, obviously. Even if we may not be able to enforce it 100%, it places everybody on notice, right? And so there's value to that. There's intrinsic, extraordinary value to that.
Okay. So in essence, the language is coming along for the ride.
Yes.
Okay. Now, another element I mentioned the last council meeting was I was concerned about where are we at with short-term rental agreements. I've read the ordinance you presented, and they all look pretty generic and pretty standard, and I didn't see anything objectionable in any of it, but none of it seemed to address that. Is that something we're still waiting for in the future, and this is our start?
What do you mean by short-term rental agreements?
Meaning people turning their houses into Airbnbs.
Yeah, that's the next one. That's literally the next. So that second ordinance deals with exactly that. We're not mentioning Airbnbs, but that's what we're talking about. Short-term rental agreements, we're talking about the larger breadth of the category.
That was the other one that you said.
Correct.
All right.
And we've
well-
split them up here for today's purposes because of the way they must be read.
Sure. Well, then, specific to that, I didn't see anything, and maybe this is getting too specific, but such as what property sizes are appropriate for an Airbnb?
Let's drop that for a minute and let's
Yeah,
wrap
that's-
this one up and then we can
That's
discuss
fine.
that one because it's
I'm happy to
another
address
item.
That's fine, not a problem.
But going back to the boarding house thing, I know you put that on there because I brought up a specific incident and was trying to figure out how we could address that as a community so that people aren't troubled by people over renting their home, their properties. And I said boarding house because that was the easiest thing I could think of that would reference people who still reside in their home and then have other people reside there as well, other than just like renting out a room to a friend or whatever. So you put that in there kind of to placate me, which is great, except it doesn't mean anything because you said it doesn't mean anything because it's
No, ma'am,
historical,
I
whatever.
I didn't do that to placate you. That's not appropriate.
But you said that
But
it doesn't really,
if I may-
it's nothing we could do, we couldn't do anything with it. But what, my point
The
is,
issue is that if I were to be able to, regardless of what you call it, it is my duty to try to find whatever that item that you want to address, right? If I could have found something that could have addressed it better, I would have.
so we didn't address the issues though, which is something I would like to see in here, right? We discussed that potentially we could govern how many people, based on space, right? Because we have parking
Talking about
constraints
limitation,
here,
yes.
right? Yeah, certain limitations. And I know this is supposedly addressing two items, right? We're talking about registration and inspection, but moving forward, this is something that's you know, is much more important than adding boarding houses to something because it's practical. And we
So
need to look for things like that that will actually benefit people, much like when we go to the Airbnb short-term rental thing, we're concerned about the hours of operation and all those kind of things because people have kids or they want to go to bed at a reasonable hour and they
All
don't want
fair.
people
All fair.
partying or parking in front of their houses or whatever. Those things we've already discussed. So
I don't
something
disagree with you.
also that needs to be addressed.
I don't disagree with you, on the contrary. It just, you know, the limitations, if you recall, based on our conversation, I told you, and I did, go back and looked at the, you know, the conversation that we had with council was the most, based on our authority, pursuant to health, our authority, the body's authority to oversee the health, safety, and welfare of this community. What is the most reduced version and limited version which offers the greatest protection to our community as far as numbers are concerned on the per square footage amount of space that we have in a given house? And this ordinance does reflect that. What I indicated to you in we've had a few of these meetings now, but what I indicated to you in one of the meetings that we had about this is that we, this is, you know, the least, the least amount of people you can permit per room based on what we see out there throughout the various communities. There's no hard and fast rule that says to us we cannot limit further. You could, and I think it may be appropriate for us to take that issue up at a next, as we deal with, additional steps in these ordinances. But what I indicated to you is that we should.
For better.
Right, yeah. We should take care, we should be cautious when we take those kinds of steps. We don't want to be, my ultimate opinion about this is that because we're 2.2 square miles, 12,000 people, we should not be the test case for any of these ordinances to be challenged. We don't want to invite those kinds of challenges, because the challenges that we would invite would be, for example, if you think about the next ordinance, would be from Airbnb. Are we going to fight Airbnb? No, we shouldn't be that community. We should let others fight Airbnb, and then we profit from whatever experiences they have, good, bad, or otherwise, and we modify whatever ordinance we pass today or down the road appropriately.
Where's the legislation stand?
Cleared, I believe it cleared committee. There was activity, but nothing further than that, because we have now the change, obviously, in the legislature. So who knows? It may take a second for the dust to settle, but there was activity. And hence the impetus to bring this back to you.
But at the conference we went, the MML conference, there were people who were vehemently against short-term rentals in their communities for a variety of reasons, and mostly because bad people do not great things when they get away with doing bad things, right? Like, not for the normal guy who's just like renting out his house for the weekend while he's gone or something like that, but because of the potential that can arise from that. But different topic. So does anyone have any other questions regarding this one? Sorry.
Just if I may.
Mr. Sampson, Councilmember Sampson's talking. Just give him 1 second,
I'm
please.
sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say I'm really for registering rentals, and I'm really like the idea of inspecting them, because that keeps the people safe that are living there. I don't want to pass this with an open-ended, how much is it going to cost? If it's $80 for a year, that wouldn't even bother me. But if somebody was to come up and say, well, it's $500 a year, now that'd put a burden on some people in town, and that wouldn't be right. So I'd like to see some kind of range before we go ahead and pass these.
Well, I think that's relating to a fee schedule. I mean, this is supposed to be a generic ordinance that's good for years and years. The fees are going to vary over time. Those fee schedules have to be approved by us in the budgeting process. And this doesn't authorize any particular fee schedule.
Exactly.
It just says you can set one up, and then they'll bring it to us.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And again, you'll have some historical context from that between, at the next meeting.
But I agree with you, Lou. We need to watch that carefully, so we don't start running people out of business.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so I believe zoning, or not zoning, but the planning commission was looking at multiple family parking requirements, whether or not, does that have any impact on what we're looking at for short-term rentals?
Yeah, they'll be meeting our potential fire ordinance. Is that what you're talking about?
No, there was supposed to be, and I know that they've had 2 meetings where they've not been able to have quorum, on multi-family parking standards. Whether or not that has passed, I don't believe it has. And whether or not that aligns with what we were talking about for our current standards for short-term rental.
I don't think that would conflict with this in any way.
Okay.
We're talking
And
registration
the other
inspections.
is more of a comment. So I think it's important that we move forward with this. My concern is, I was asked about the current status of the legislation. This could potentially be part of a lame duck session that's tied to some other type of legislation that's put in front of the governor's desk. Now, there may be a number of people who may not like it, but it may be part of a bigger package that may push this through. So I think it's imperative that we do this quickly rather than wait until the end of the legislative session.
I agree.
Anyone else?
How can we limit a landlord for a number of cars, or a number of people and a number of cars, but a homeowner, we can't limit them? Or can we?
We can, but that's not what's in front of us right now. So I don't,
Yeah.
we've clouded this one enough. I don't know that we need to do a better job than what we already have done.
We can do a better job.
Well, we can muddy these waters up real good.
Yeah, undoubtedly. But yeah, no, it wouldn't. The short answer is yes, but again, not a part of this.
So what are we voting on?
First reading.
First reading.
In which case I will publish the public hearing for the next meeting, in the first meeting in December, where you will vote on the final ordinance.
The motion is I move an ordinance to govern rental units and inspections be introduced and entered into first reading.
So moved.
It's already been motioned, seconded.
Oh, has it?
Yes. So,
Well, I
God,
guess
we're
we're going to vote on it
efficient
now.
today.
Let's vote on it now.
okay, Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the first reading of that. Let's move on to the next one that will cause a lot of conversation again. Very important conversation, though. So this, item 9E is consideration and introduction of the first reading of an ordinance to govern short-term rental units and inspections. So, as we said before, blah, 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 same thing. Mr. Newshy.
Motion then.
Oh, sorry. Oh, see, same thing.
Same thing.
I forgot the motion both times.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Similar in nature, I'm happy to address all your questions.
Is this a public hearing? She's got to open it
Oh,
up.
yeah, yeah.
No, not until
Oh,
the
no,
next
not this
meeting.
The
one.
next one.
Yeah.
This is just the first hearing, first reading, I'm sorry.
First reading.
Here I am mudding those waters. Councilmember Anderson, I believe you had some questions with respect to this.
Yes. What I read was, again, the language seemed very generic,
Yes.
as most ordinances are, but how will we get specific things laid out? I've stated before, I'm pretty familiar with this city, I'm familiar with Airbnbs, and I'm going to say 90% of the homes in this town are inappropriate for an Airbnb, maybe more. So the question is, how do we restrict based on size, parking capacity, as
Yeah, so
Councilman Sampson
that's
brought
not,
up?
yeah, that's not what this is necessarily dealing with, right? Obviously, we're utilizing this one, again, as that necessary first step for registration and inspection, meaning if you want to do business in the city, and we're early on in the process, right? We only have, we're counting them with the fingers of one hand as far as the amount of these kind of businesses in town. But they have a tendency to, proliferate, and we want to get ahead of it. This first step, again, doesn't deal with, with limitations of who, where, when, right? But those are all necessary. I think once you put this regime into place, so we give our building official the ability to properly register, inspect, and address whatever issues comes as a result of that, and we put this in our books, the next step would be, particularly, I'm more concerned myself about this as opposed to the remainder, that first ordinance that we just had first reading. This one, those decisions are important and momentous, but that's the conversation that this body is going to have. Our duty as administration will be to provide you with as much background as possible as far as what other communities have done and what are sort of our limits. I can sort of preemptively and prospectively tell you that there are some hard and fast limits. And it's not going to be a simple and easy conversation in that regard. Our tendency, our desire is going to want to be, as is the desire usually of most municipalities, is to limit in order to make sure that we provide the best services possible, the most protection to our community, our residents, and those who come to stay here in our community. And yet, on the other hand, we have, certain constitutional rights, among which are the right to contract, which we cannot necessarily impinge upon, and other rights that people have. So it'll be a conversation that we'll have to go into detail. To me, it's a necessary, but there's going to be a necessary but a difficult topic, and that's why my thought was always to parse them out, to split them into pieces and bite-sized, chewable sort of items. Otherwise, we could just be here forever.
So, what's short-term?
Short-term, that's a term of art in my world, in the legal world, that basically says anything under, it could include anything under a year, but certainly anything under a month, if that answers your question. So in the traditional sense, leases pursuant to common law were, had dealt with longer periods of time, right? That's where the 1 year comes into play. Modern times deal with 30-day, right? Monthly, all leases we are governed on account of monthly terms. So anything less than that monthly term, anything less than 30 days is construed to be a short-term rental agreement, right? Which will be covered by this ordinance.
So the people in town who are contracted with traveling nurses, and they'll rent from anywhere from a month to 6 months.
But that would be that would be the previous first reading that you just did. That's what that would cover.
Even if it was a month?
Yes, even month to month, that's pursuant to our, pursuant to current standards, that would be nonetheless falling under that previous ordinance that we just passed, that we just had the first reading.
Yeah, because it'd be a tough one, because you contract to the
Correct.
people that put them up, and but they're renting from us, landlords, and it can be anywhere from a month to 9 months, 10, a whole year, so.
Understood.
So they wouldn't fall in short term?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
So what's the differentiation?
The 1 month, anything shorter than a month period.
So, that doesn't make sense, though. So it has nothing to do with, oh, okay.
Tell us.
It's a big gap.
What's your concern?
So that's why we have both of these ordinances, right, to complement one another, to try to cover the entire plethora of agreements you could possibly have into place. That's why we're offering both of them.
So, but if you're saying we can't not have short-term rental, not welcome short-term rentals in our community, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. My personal,
No.
could you be,
May we? I don't care what I
I
value your opinion,
understand
but
that.
not your opinion.
Right,
Like,
right. No, I speak.
May our community opt out of short-term rentals at this point in time?
I think, and this answer that I'm attempting to give you is the reason why people hate lawyers, because we don't have yes or no answers, unfortunately.
Right, figure that
A
out.
lot of it depends, unfortunately. So I believe the answer to your question, the legal answer, not my thoughtful opinion on the matter, the answer to the question is no, you cannot outlaw this outright. If you do, you're welcoming that litigation that I think we should try to avoid at all costs. But could you? Of course, you can pass an ordinance. Absolutely.
So the communities that are not welcoming this to their communities, what are they doing to not welcome it to their communities? They're just passing
They're passing an ordinance
ordinances?
just like you, yeah, just like you could. Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we come, this is registration and inspection. Could this body say, well, why would we register and inspect something that we don't want altogether? We just don't want it. Thank you very much. So long. Short-term rentals outlawed from the city. You could have that ordinance. You could pass that ordinance. Unwise, I wouldn't recommend it. But you could, certainly.
Well, we all know that there are many people who operate rental homes, properties, and never get inspections. They never register until someone brings them before you, any you, to register and inspect. People feel like it's their right, and they don't want anybody in their things, right? So that happens on a day-to-day basis. The same thing, we already know. We have a few homes operating under short-term rentals now, because they're listed on Airbnb sites and such. So it happens either way, right? We're not profiting from those at this point, but
Well, we'll be sanctioning them if they do so after you pass these ordinances.
the concern is, again, Clausen, the buying power in Clausen is super good, right? Like, if you have dollars and you want to get a house, you can get a good value on a house here. The location is great, right, as far as Metro Detroit area. There's a lot of reason for people to want to set up shop here.
Absolutely.
And it could change the fabric of our neighborhoods. And I don't know that, if we would get 50 of them, 50 people interested, that's part of the concern communities are having, is who's picking up their properties that are out there. It's already hard enough to get a home. And if people are picking them up for businesses to operate businesses in residential homes, then it shuts down the opportunity for people to have homes too. So this whole thing is huge, and I just would like to think of it in its entirety, all of the implications that are there, as opposed to just saying, yeah, we'll go ahead and say we're going to license them and inspect them, and then that's putting a stamp on it that says, yeah, sure, come on over, we're happy to take you, because that's the first thing you're saying.
I don't disagree with you, on the contrary. And the reason I am bringing this forward is because I have those same concerns. But we have to, at least my thought is, council may tell me otherwise, we have to recognize certain pragmatic realities on the ground. Any ordinance is aspirational, but it tries to deal with practical realities. A couple of practical realities that we have on the ground is that Airbnb's been out there for a long time, right? And these kind of services have been out there for a long time, and we only have, again, a few in town. That's a good sign. I want to nip it in the bud in the sense that I want to make sure to recognize whomever's out there, register them, inspect them, to have that ability on behalf of this city. I think that's critically important. In my mind, if tomorrow, or if when we have that very necessary conversation about, should this be here, when, if yes, if the answer is yes, from what time to what time do you put limits? What are the limits of this thing? And if at that conversation, after you consider it all, you say, you know what, we can't make this work. We don't think this is right for our community. Perfect. Then we've had a thoughtful conversation, and we've made a reasonable determination. And ordinances are, we pass ordinances to deal with certain issues. We can always change our mind and basically go back and yank an ordinance too. Happens all the time. We make amendments, It
takes 2 meetings.
Yep.
Yeah.
The problem is, though, we have, residents who live next door, and the few that we have a couple of issues, and it's the absentee landlord thing, which is going to be prevalent definitely with the short-term rental, as it is with the regular rental. Absentee landlords, they're not concerned with the garbage, the parking, the noise, the deterioration, because they're not there. They're not paying attention to it. They're not living with it. And our residents will live with it. And I want to put our residents first.
Yeah. But don't we have ordinances that cover all that? We got noise ordinances after a certain time. We got parking ordinances. Maybe we enforce them harder, but is this going to be a 1-year license? Or did it have to register for every person coming in?
No, it wouldn't be every person coming in. I don't know that I've put a timeline on this, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm trying to think. My apologies.
Can we put a buy-in for the neighbors having to sign off? Is that prohibitive?
No, you'd be affecting the right to contract. There's no way that we would be able to do that. You can go, and as I say, that you can take the step that it would be a highly unusual step because it would affect the right to contract, which is a U.S. constitutional, federal constitutional right. If we were to say we don't want we're outlawing these in our community. We don't want any short-term rental agreements. You may not have this. You could have regular rentals, which is a month or more. Okay. I think I would have, as an attorney, if I were to be on the receiving end, first landlord that comes to me and asks me a question is like, what do you think of this law? I have this house that I bought in Clawson, and they just passed an ordinance that says that I cannot do the Airbnb. Unconstitutional all day. We'll challenge it, take me a year, to go to Oakland County Circuit Court. Unless something highly unusual happens, which stranger things have happened in courts, that would come back unconstitutional.
So what about, this is a business then, it's not a residence, right? If you're
Oh,
doing
but it's
short-term
both.
rental.
It's both, yeah.
But it's more a business, it's a business to the owner, right? It's not a residence to the owner. They're not most likely not occupying, right? I have no problem with someone who rents out their home for Christmas while they're going to someplace better for Christmas, right? Like they just want to swap. That's not an issue thing.
There is no place better for Christmas, ma'am. Not better than
Oh,
Clawson.
listen to that. Oh my gosh, Rennis. Everyone,
Thank you.
Rennis
I'm
has a
here
heart.
every Tuesday.
every other Tuesday.
Every
For
other
those of you
Tuesday.
who are sleeping, go ahead, repeat that, would you please?
There's no better place than Clawson and Christmas. Thank you.
Hey, nice, very nicely done.
But yeah, but I think your point, your point is well taken, and those are again, to me, when we talk about limitations, it can never be draconian, which is why I'm offering this for your consideration. If we take the draconian step, we're going to be challenged. Odds are we're going to lose. And so we want to, again, we're always thinking in terms of health, safety, welfare of the citizens of the city of Clawson. Period. And how do we give them the most? We can offer more protections, not less. And it's funny how that works, because that means both we're protecting the residents, we're protecting the homeowners, or the property owners. It's everyone involved. So
So have you contacted have you spoken with any other communities who are on the not in my community regarding this? What's their take? Because it's happening. Other communities are not buying into this, so they must have they would face the same potential threats that we
Potential
would
threats,
if
absolutely.
if we did not enter into this type of an agreement. So what's the consensus on that?
there is none. There is no consensus.
Everyone's
So-
just doing a wait and see?
There's a little bit of that. No, not necessarily wait and see. Everybody's taking a stance usually because of the action that's happening on. We may be preempted because of the action that's happening in the legislature. Meaning we're having this lovely conversation over however many months now, and at the end of the day, just as Councilmember Shepherd indicated, they may just pass this bill as just a bunch of bills jumbled together. Voting for some, voting for all, and we may be preempted because state law would be able to preempt us on this. So any one of those ordinances that are, those statutes that are up in front of our legislature would basically could potentially do away with our right, depending on what comes out in the end, with our right to legislate on the topic. To me, wait and see, I find wait and see problematic in my world. Because I always think, giving ourselves a right to do something, to have registration and inspection at minimum, and then sanctions to follow if you don't. I think to me, that's a necessity.
Well, then, registration and inspection isn't enough in this case, so why aren't we drafting all of it at once? Or at least a more comprehensive portion of it at once? Not the whole thing, but more comprehensive.
To me, I'm happy to come back to have that conversation the day after we're done with this ordinance. To me, adding more to it would be complicating it more than what we already are.
It would be defining it more, not complicating it more,
Well,
ideally.
complicating in terms of, no, I agree with you, actually. We would be defining it, complicating our conversation and the things that council will have to determine. Instead of, with what, 4 or 5 pages worth of ordinance that this is, and we've had so much, because it is an important topic, because it's something that's near and dear to all of your hearts as members of this community. It's certainly understandable. I think adding more considerations here will make it more difficult. Happy to do it.
Do it in a pragmatic approach. We could say, okay, we've decided upon these items right here. We're going to proceed with them, but first, we're going to build, and we're going to go to these couple of items, and then we're going to put those on the side, and then we're going to go to a couple more, and then we're going to have a comprehensive document or an idea that is more it's more planned out.
But we can build, again, body's choice. This is, to me, I think, it's not that I'm less optimistic than you. It's just that I would like to move on with this, what we have in our hands. Vote this up or down. If that's the choice, vote it down, and then I'll bring it back to you with that understanding, and we build on it.
Rennis, I'm sorry, if I may. Yeah, Rennis, at one point I'd asked the question, can we simply ban short-term rentals in Clawson? Your answer to me was something along the lines of, we could try, but it probably wouldn't stand a court case.
Correct.
Fair enough. So then in our last meeting, I think I'd asked you, in light of that we cannot ban the existence of short-term rentals, could you please craft an ordinance that would be as restrictive as possible and yet still withstand a legal test? So I think what Mayor Milan's concerned about is what we got here is like a step.
Right.
And we need to take this step. Like I said, I read through, it's all standard, registration, fees, inspections, things you expect. In doing so, we're acknowledging the existence of short-term rentals to exist. We're allowing, the fact that we've created an ordinance governing them means we've accepted their existence, which just agrees with what you said before, we can't ban them outright. So that said, I agree with the mayor, we need to move quickly.
Yes.
To get the rest going.
I couldn't agree
with all possible speed.
All deliberate speed, I believe.
So, all right, so we've got these steps laid out. I've read them both, very generic, nothing jumped out at me as being inappropriate.
Meant to be, yep.
We need to get these moving, and then, as the mayor's requested, get more specific.
Happy to do so. And actually, we don't have to.
Clearances, nature of health, safety, all these things, which will allow us to hopefully control and contain how we do this in the city.
I agree. Absolutely.
Okay.
Have we had any problem with the Airbnb?
No, sir.
That's what I didn't think.
We get some complaints.
We've had complaints. We have had some serious, I take, we have one good example, right? That is a really bad example of the potential. And it's similar to any rental, or any neighbor, right? You get a good neighbor, you get a bad neighbor. You don't know what you're getting. At least if you live next to someone, you might be able to develop a pattern on how to coexist, right? If you have someone new coming in, say you we have a really great marketing person who owns an Airbnb, and he's great at getting someone in there every week, and sometimes they're there for a week, sometimes they're there for 2 days. We've talked about this, the potential, our staff works 4 days a week. If there's an issue with some things that take place on a Thursday afternoon, no one's going to show up till Monday or Tuesday by the time they get the note to go rectify a problem. You can always call the police, but as we know, if something's not happening in front of their eyes, it might not have happened. And why do we want people who've been residents for 30 years or two to feel uncomfortable in the home that they purchased to live in a residential unit in a traditional neighborhood, right? We have traditional neighborhoods. People are looking for traditional neighbors. So just the opportunity for someone, I feel so bad when someone's uncomfortable around their own home. I think that's horrific. I think anything we can do to prevent a flow of people and a flow of opportunity that's potentially negative, we should do that. They might get lucky and have some really great people next door for a few days at a time too, and have great stories, but so far that's not happened according to what we've heard. And I think that's something we really have to pay attention to, because there's no way to stop it once it starts. And again, it's what you bought into. My first year on planning, people were complaining because of businesses behind them, which were all businesses, right? They're on a residential street and it's all businesses behind. Several issues that were not great, but in my head, I'm like, you bought a house that butts up to businesses. You know what I mean? You know your situational awareness when you purchase certain things. Mm-hmm. If you don't know you have an Airbnb next door to you, and you all of a sudden have a lot of people coming and going, it could change your lifestyle. It could change your comfort in your home, and people should feel comfort and peace in their home, as much as we can control that.
I hope, Rennis, after we do this, you'll proceed in those areas as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
To ensure these
Actually,
things.
I'll
the
try
mayor
to make sure
described
that I
don't
bring
happen.
it, I won't promise it per se at the next meeting, but we can potentially bring it to you for the next meeting, put it on the agenda so you get started the discussion, so, absolutely.
I'd like it pulled together. That's my opinion, because I feel like once we say yes to this, it seems like we're stamping the whole process.
But you're not. I know that's how it feels. They probably, that's natural that you do so, but you're not, though. That's not how that, legally speaking, I should say. Legally speaking, you're not. Legally speaking, realistically, there's nothing you can do that either, you can take the draconian step, right, and say absolutely not. Short of that, you can't affect what we already have, right? Those that we already have in town, they're existing.
Right, which is why we want to move with speed so we don't get
Precisely.
any more.
Precisely.
So if we pass this, you're going to go knock on those doors or respond to one of their ads and then say, hey, inspection and fee and
That's
thank you very
exactly what we
much?
do. That's what every community does. You go right on the website on VRBO and Airbnb and you look them up and you send them a letter and you see if they even bother to register or if they take it down. Because you'll see that folks, even the minimum registration, they don't want to deal with.
Yeah, that doesn't mean they're no longer in business.
Well, you watch the sites, you see, and you send them a ticket
Well,
for
and
not
then
being in
so what? Then they
compliance.
say I'm just gone for one weekend. So like, how do you enforce that? How? Because
Well,
literally that's the problem. Enforcement.
Code enforcement people to keep an eye on that. And they put it out there. They can't have a business unless they put it out there. They have to hang that out there. And we have as much access as the city as any person in the neighborhood does or anyone looking for an Airbnb does. They can't hide it from us.
Okay. Anyone else have any great wisdom on this one?
Who here would do that? Code enforcement?
It's like, yeah, it would be code enforcement, but if you think about it, it's in terms of just the same way that we prosecute all crime. Nobody's committing crimes in front of our police officers necessarily. But we find out what crimes are committed, right? We investigate, we prosecute, we take care of it. I'm not saying that this is on the same level, far from it. Right?
So-
But nonetheless, that's just how it operates.
So what if you contact one of these people and they say, oh, I just put it up there, I never really rent it? Then are they still responsible to you? Or do you say, take it, if you're posting, it's the same thing as if you're not? I mean,
It doesn't matter. If you've taken certain steps, you'd fall under this ordinance. Once you've taken those proactive steps, the writing's on the wall.
So the step is advertised?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, motion?
I already have it.
The other table, yeah.
Roll call?
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
No.
These will both be published for a public hearing, and you have another opportunity to go through this all again in 2 weeks,
Yay.
or at the first meeting in December.
Okay.
And the subsequent one, December, will have some more meat and potatoes detail on this.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay, we'll now move to item number 10, which is old unfinished business. Does anyone have any old/unfinished business for us to address?
December 6th.
Good answer. Next item will be public comments for items not on the agenda. Would our public like to speak for any items that are not on the agenda?
Come on, Greg.
That's a resounding no. We'll move on to our city attorney's report. Mr. Newshine?
Thank you. After that, I just have something very brief for you. We were served, and I received today a lawsuit from one of our residents concerning the bill that was before you last time, one of our volunteers. It's a bill that, as I'm told, has been paid, so the issue I anticipate will be resolved fairly quickly and fairly amicably. Nonetheless, by the next meeting, I'll probably have a closed session to be able to bring you all that information for your consideration and whatever. In the meantime, I will have the conversations necessary with the other side in order to hopefully resolve the issue, which I anticipate being able to do so.
Did you say it's paid?
I'm sorry?
You said it's paid?
My understanding is that it is paid.
Yes, it is.
Thanks.
Other than that, I have nothing else, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
You don't usually share cases with us. Is there a reason you shared that one?
Because I received it today, and it's an issue that came before council just at the last meeting, that's all. And it is closed in the sense that we have, administration has already taken the step, but, it will come before you in a closed session nonetheless, because there are additional steps for us. So because of the close timeline that everything will happen, ordinarily, I usually forward you an email. On this one, I figured I'd tell you today because I received it today.
Okay. Thank you. City Manager's report, Mr. Raker?
Ma'am, I have nothing to add at this time.
Nothing, not one good thing? Tell me one good thing that happened this week. You got something.
One good thing that happened this week.
Yep.
It's only Tuesday.
I know. Come on. You're an optimist.
We've had a very successful election since we last met.
Your name's not the city manager. So I was gonna say that. I was gonna give you that prop. You stole it for yourself. Yes, I was. I was looking right at you.
Stole your thunder.
He was going, why me? He was looking at you, but he was saying, why me?
Exactly.
No. I was gonna say the election. Great turnout. In fact, August brought some stats from participation. The percentage turnout was what, 67, 68?
67%. And if any of you want that, I can send you turnout reports. I can send you just like the basics, you see the demographics, what age groups voted. It's just interesting
Yeah,
sometimes
we
to
would
look
love
at
to see that. Please share.
So I'll forward that over to all of you.
I appreciate
It's easy to do.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I was going to ask you anyways, Mr. City Clerk, what do you want to share good news about the election?
Oh, just everything went very smooth. All of our locations were fantastic. Our workers did really well. There was absolutely no incidents of, like everything was rumored about challengers and all this crazy, none of that happened. And other clerks I talked to around the area, none of that happened. It just kind of went smooth. People came and they voted and they went home, and there was lines in the morning and lines briefly in the afternoon, but no one waited more than 15 minutes. Went well.
I think I was there more than 15 minutes, but it was pleasant.
It's also a
I didn't
long
complain.
ballot, so it was a long ballot to vote.
I wouldn't count that. That's my time, right? That's
Okay.
me. But it was a slightly different process this time. We had a gentleman who made us fill out the little white form in his presence.
Yeah, he has to initial it and see your signature and
Yeah, that was new. We've never had to do that before. That caused a little bit of confusion at the door, I'm not going to lie. But it was fun, made people talk to each other, it's all good. Any city council comments, Miss Councilmember Shepherd from far, far away?
Yeah, again, I appreciate the accommodation with this ongoing COVID. But the only question I had was, and I'm glad that you brought up regarding the election. I think it was, turnout. That's amazing for mid-election. But regarding the county passing the transit tax, what does that do for Clawson one way or the other?
I believe they're working on all of that. I'll just say it because I've been reading a lot on that. That's stuff that's to come for the communities. Am I correct?
With
They
all the
passed it,
proposals.
and now they have to get all the communities together and figure out exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, the reason why I asked is it wasn't clear. Because I know that you look at some of the other communities that already had structured transportation within their communities, and how that is incorporated, and what does that mean for them, and how much that impacts us. There's a lot of open questions that I had regarding that, and whether or not we had any new insight after now it's passed.
I'm going to say we'll look into that, and the information will be coming. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for more information. Do you have anything else for us?
No, I just hopefully somebody from the county would come in and explain it. Right? What is it? How does it benefit Clawson? I mean, they certainly. I never heard anything during the course of that. To promote it one way or the other. And I think that's important that we hear that information now that it's passed. What does that mean?
Probably would have
Whether or not we
been,
can get somebody from the county to do that, that'd
Yeah.
be wonderful.
would have been good information before, but
So, no, the only other thing is that something came to mind on, as we move through on some of our construction for next year, and looking at the Famous Chicken for one example, the accidents that occurred there, how the construction site is protected, is walled off or cordoned off from the public. Whether or not that's something we need to look at on some of our home constructions that are going up. I see a lot of open spaces that allow people to venture into properties that probably should be more safely guarded. And I don't think we have anything on our books that addresses that, other than perhaps maybe an orange tape. And that came up not too long ago, maybe 2 years ago, when there was a gaping hole on plywood. And really the only thing that was preventing anybody from walking onto the property was a yellow caution tape. So whether or not that can be looked at, I think we need to look into it before the next construction season.
Thank you. Councilmember Sampson?
I got a question for you. You just said that we're going to look into it, the transportation stuff. Who's we?
Oh, I mean, all of us, we're all going to investigate it because there's information coming out every day. I really mean administration, but I think that information is out there. I just read something yesterday that said that Oakland County was going to start getting with all of the end users, communities to start building, right? Because they did push to have that program, but they didn't share a lot of information, and there are a lot of questions. And it'll affect every community differently, so let's see.
Just wanted to clarify who was going to do it.
Yeah, not me. That's an administration thing, but what I meant by that was public information is out there, so, read up, because our Oakland County executive is pretty good about sharing information. I think he does a very good job of sharing information. So, and he did hold a couple of town hall type meetings just before the election for our local communities to get together to see how it would affect us. I think there was one at Royal Oak, but there'll be a lot of information out there. But Mr. Raker will be happy to share when he finds anything. I will speak on his behalf, right, Mr. Raker?
Fantastic. I'm going to reach out to Commissioner Penny Lubes.
Oh, very good resource for us. Thank you. Good idea. Was successful in her race. Yay, Commissioner Lubes. Did you have anything else for us? No? Okay, great. How about you, Mr. Councilmember Anderson?
I just had a question for August. So with the passing of Proposal 2, how does that impact future elections?
Well, we're going to see. There's some everything in that proposal was already done, a lot of it was just like reiterating what we already do, the security stuff. The 9 days of pre-tabulation is the new thing. Now, it does not require that we necessarily do it. You can team up with another city. You just have to have a location that can accept ballots for your community for 9 days. So maybe
person, right?
Yeah, in person. So like maybe the county sets one up, and maybe Troy has one, and we share. You can walk the way it's written. You could have like a gym with 4 different cities tabulators, and you get issued a ballot from your city, and you can run it that day. Or some cities will lock it up and say you have one precinct that's open for 9 days that you have to staff. So that's all being sorted out. And we suspect there's going to be some meetings with the county and some of our neighboring cities to see how we're going to do it to share costs, because no one city wants to have to run a precinct for 9 days and pay for that. So we're having a meeting in a couple weeks. It's supposed to be a Christmas party, but I can tell you this is going to be a main conversation topic before the revelry at the bowling alley with the Clerks Gone Wild.
Clerks Gone Wild?
Yeah, that's what we call it. It's
That's a
crazy.
thing?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the campaign slogans was that it'll codify picture ID. When you read the verbiage, it said we can ask for picture ID or a signed affidavit.
Right.
Isn't that the existing?
It's exactly. Like I said, everything in there was the same. All that protection for military votes, that was all there. It was already done.
So the only new feature to you is the 9 days.
Yes. That was the only change in my day-to-day, or in my election experience that I see.
Okay. I'm wondering if people come election day -9, okay, and then all of a sudden they decide they want to change and spoil their ballot on day -7. I mean,
Yeah, they don't. It's their ballot is tabulated. It is. It's gone.
It's done.
It's
not
done.
like an absentee ballot that's going to sit there.
No, well, absentee ballot, you can come and fetch and pull back, spoil it, and redo it.
Up
If,
until
say,
election day,
a candidate passes away and you want to vote for someone else and it's a primary. And so you have 3 or 4 other options. You want to make your vote count, you can come pull it. That happened in the presidential primary, like someone backed out, right? And people came and pulled their ballots. You don't have that option if your ballot's already in the tabulator.
Okay.
You just said someone could fetch their badge.
Yeah.
ballot.
We can fetch it.
Just,
Yeah, what happened
just
here
remarking
last
at the use of terminology.
It's a legal term.
Okay, anything else? I would like to know, are we having a tree lighting ceremony this year?
I think it's the 30th, correct?
Yeah, November 30th at the Memorial Park next to the library. 6:30 p.m. is when caroling starts. And then I believe Santa will be there between 6:45 and 7. And then once the tree's lit, we're inviting people back to the community room at City Hall.
Where cookies and drinks will be served by the Lions Club? Is that who usually does it? I don't know. who does
It's a mishmash of local organizations. I believe the Chamber, I believe the Lions Club is involved to an extent as well. And
Okay.
there's probably gonna be more people popping on as we get closer.
Good to know. Okay, then I would just like to say thank you to Pastor Tony and the Guardian Angels Catholic School robotics team for coming out today and sharing their vast technological aptitude with us, and also for the family of Marianne Markwick. It was really fun to celebrate her 100th birthday and to hear about her journey through Clawson and to see people who still live here that came through her. So thanks everyone in Clawson for being awesome, and I hope you all have a good night. Our next meeting will be on the 6th. Is that correct? Yep. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Anderson,
Yes.
Milan,
Yep.
Sampson.
This meeting is adjourned.
Not everybody.
I always forget about 2 days later, Charlie goes, "Never answer my phone call." Shut it off.
Because we see him every day at Harvard, right?
Yeah, this meeting had the illusion of being short, but it wasn't.